Hey, welcome everyone to Bleav in Kansas City Sports with Darren Smith. I am, of course, that said host Darren Smith, and with me this week on our podcast, another weekly episode. This time we'll be previewing the Kansas City Chiefs Monday night game against the New York Football Giants. That's going to be taking place at Arrowhead Stadium. This is one of my roommates. I call him a roommate because we're on the same row in the press box at Arrowhead Stadium when we're covering the Kansas City Chiefs, but he is SiriusXM's Christian Vedder. Christian, thank you so very much for joining me on the podcast, man, and welcome to the show.
Hey, Darren. Nice to see you, man.
It's always good.
Yeah,
to see
we go
you.
back. We go back to radio days, CBG family.
Yes, sir. First of all, we're not going to date ourselves. We just
about
know
a decade. I think we were there. I mean, I was there about a decade, but I know you.
Yeah,
were there
but no, but we met. Well, probably not. If I'm correct, probably 1999, if not sooner.
Right around then. Yeah, right around.
Yeah, because I was doing an internship with Tony G in '99. Oh, yeah. Now I was doing internships before that.
Yeah.
Before then, but I know that was going into my senior year in college. That's when I did another internship at 103 for college credits. But just briefly, because we're going to talk a lot about Monday night's game. Let people know how you got into sports broadcasting and how into where you gotten to right now with SiriusXM and CBS Sports.
I really don't want to bore your audience right off the bat, so I'm just going to say, it just started when I was 19. I was doing overnights on a local rock station, 106.5 KXXR. Today's whatever it was, I don't know, music, blah blah blah, and then nothing for about a year and a half, and then I was doing other jobs and stuff, and then in 1993 worked for the original, well, not the original, actually. The second or third original WHB. It was 710, not 810 at that time. But I was doing high school sports and I was doing overnights there. But instead of playing rock and roll, I was playing Hank Williams Sr., not junior, not even more up-to-date country. It was like the old stuff. Like no one knows who I'm even talking about, like Furlan Husky and people you don't even know. But I would do anything to get in radio. And then I did a guest DJ spot on 98.9 The Rock and did a guest DJ spot on 107.3 The X or Kiss FM. And then that led me to KCTE and met, Nick Vassos and friends. We, just things went from there. But over the years did updates for networks, one-on-one sports back in the mid-90s. That was Papa Joe Chevalier and Johnny Renshaw, the Freak, and all those guys. Kevin Wall, Kansas City connection. So started doing updates. But then, I was out at the press box and I seen guys like Greg Eklund and John Doolittle, and I saw them doing updates. And I went from the back row in a stool to an actual seat back when Bob Moore and Eileen Normile and all those folks were there in the
Pete Morris.
Pete Morris and that. So then I started filling in for those guys, and then they moved on to some different things. So I've been a correspondent for the networks, just about every network, Sporting News Radio, Fox Sports Radio, ESPN for a minute, did some college stuff for them and some football, but mainly Fox Sports Radio, WFAN, SiriusXM since 2004. And so currently CBS Sports Radio and SiriusXM NFL Radio, just as a correspondent. And it kind of keeps my feet into radio, but doing different things, doing stuff like, you're doing live streaming. And I work with my clients. I have a company, Viral Video Marketing, and I produce videos for businesses and also help them and coach them on how to do their own video. I'm a SAG-AFTRA voiceover and an actor. So I do, some voiceovers every year. Not a lot. I call myself a professional auditioner, but 1 or 2, 3 here or there a year, and got a pretty long list of credits of voiceover commercials over the years. But that is it. But I love sports and I love sports radio. I'm a fan of sports talk radio in Kansas City and 810 WHB. Been around 25 plus years, and they do an awesome job of bringing the power of sports to Kansas City sports fans. So yeah, big fan of sports talk radio in Kansas City, and I think I always will be.
Well, look, like I said, it's always a pleasure having you on. I got a chance to be on your podcast last week, right before kickoff in Nashville. So that was fun. And I know we've talked, and so I'll be doing more things with you as the season progresses. But want to look ahead to Monday night's game, of course. The New York Football Giants are 2-5, Kansas City 3-4. Both teams are coming into Kansas City. One's on a high, one's on a low. And it's not the teams that you would think it would be. The New York Football Giants come in winning 25-3 against the Carolina Panthers. The Chiefs, on the other hand, losing 27-3 to the Tennessee Titans. Again, their record is 3-4. This is the defending AFC champions in the AFC. Your first overall thoughts on this game when you look at the football Giants and the Kansas City Chiefs?
Very similar to what we saw a couple of weeks ago with Washington. I really think that, and the Chiefs are going to be at home. And, I know you were probably there today because you cover the team and you're there. Patrick Mahomes is talking about a lot of it falling on him, and he has to be more sharp and make better decisions. So when I look at this game, I look at it kind of like the Washington game. The only thing, though, in that game, they were down and they struggled early in the first half, and they had to have one of those 21 unanswered points to come back to win that game. So they were not, perfect in that game. Eric Bieniemy, I heard him talk before the game, and he said that they wanted to have a great game on tape. He referred to it as tape. They didn't get that. They didn't get that good game on tape. And Patrick Mahomes made some questionable throws, and obviously the interceptions, continued, and that continued into the Tennessee game. So, but when I look at the Giants game, it's a game that the Chiefs should win, and Patrick Mahomes came out and, really put it on himself. And I think you're going to see a more crisp, a little more fundamental Patrick Mahomes. But defenses, I know you're going to get into this, but defense are doing a great job to curtail him so he's not out there. The magic of Mahomes has been curtailed by defenses, so we're not seeing that. And we might not see it this week either, because I really think they're going to probably, try to find a way to keep him protected, keep him in the pocket, and run a much more crisp offense, and maybe stretch the field, because they've been dinking and dunking and keeping everything, down under. And I think they want to probably try to test this defense and go deep, something they haven't really done a lot of.
Yeah, Christian, when I look at this matchup initially, I'm like you. I think Kansas City should be able to win this game. They should be able to win this game. You would think rather convincingly, but Kansas City has been anything but convincing this season thus far. The biggest thing I think that I would say worries me about Kansas City is that they're stubborn to a fault, and they don't like to change what they feel like has been working for them. I know members of the media and even some of the coaching staff, I know Patrick Mahomes probably today, they probably hate the fact that I keep asking, why you all always deferring, putting your defense out on the field first? And again, we'll talk about the defense in just a little bit, but I posed the question to Andy last week after the Tennessee loss. He didn't want to respond. He didn't want to answer to it. Jared Bill, to his credit, did say that was a legit question and Andy should have answered it. But for me, it's I'm still trying to figure out, and I need somebody to help me understand it. And to an extent, last week's guest, Dana Hughes, he was trying to understand, but then when I add a little pushback, he understood where I was coming from. And our good friend Neil Jones today was saying, Darren, he said, I don't agree with you on this whole deferral thing, but I do understand your point. I'm like, that's the whole point. It's not, I mean, I don't have a problem I don't have a problem in general with teams deferring, because look, I mean, I know Brady and Belichick and kind of specialize in that, to where, the idea is, the hope is to get the ball close to the end of the half, score a touchdown, then you get the ball back to start the second half, and you hope to come back and score. So you have a little 14-point swing. Well, that's in theory, but it doesn't always work out in that way. And so,
I said I agree.
I was getting ready to do the fan, because I want to stop you there, because I know what you said. Neil Jones said, I understand your point, but all week long, I kind of use this. I'm having fun with this thing, but I've heard Chiefs fans say,
you can't do that. You've got to have the possession right before the end of the half so you get it in the third quarter.
Well, yeah.
We know that. But I know what you're saying. You're saying the defense is not one you want to put out there first. That's not your first look at the game. Your best look is Patrick Mahomes, because you got to give, yes, he's had some tough games, but you got to think that they've got the best shot to go down the field and score and set the tone for the game. That's why I heard that take, and I completely agreed with you. And I've heard all the other naysayers say, no, you've got to go with the analytics or what the numbers say. And I'm sure they're there. You will most likely get the possession at the end of the half, and then you got a chance to have 14 points back to back if you start the third quarter with the scoring drive, and you got a better chance to do that with Patrick Mahomes. But at the same time, if your defense is allowing teams to run all over them and they score, you might as well just not defer and just take the ball and get on the board first. I agree with you.
And that, and that's been my biggest thing is like, look, I get it, and I can understand where the analytics come in at, and look, and for me, it's not even by analytics; it's the eye test. The eye test is telling me that your defense is ranked 31st, 32nd in the league. They can't stop anybody.
Yeah.
Why would you allow? And then we're just using Tennessee as an example because it's the last one to play. But why would you allow Tennessee to set the tempo, as you said, to get the momentum? They come out, that you can't stop them. They pretty much march down the field methodically and ends with the Derrick Henry touchdown pass, not a run, but a touchdown pass. And then you get on the field, you're already trailing 7-0. So now you're playing catch up instead of you setting the tempo, you coming out, going up 7-0 potentially. And then, they're still going to run the ball because you're only on one touchdown ahead. But who's to say that you don't get them to go 3 and out, and then you can come back in with the punt, perhaps go down the field. Now it's 14-0 if you score. Now you force them to throw the football and take Derrick Henry out of the ball game. I mean, let it work in your favor. Like, put the other team back on their heels. Why should the Chiefs offense always be playing catch up? Because again, if you remember from the first game against the Cleveland Browns, they were trailing. They were always playing catch up until the late in the second half of the ball game. So again, why put yourself in a situation and why put that type of pressure on the defense? I asked Alex Oka for the same thing, and he's like, "Well, we want that." No, you can say you want that because that's what you want. That's what you want us to believe. But the stats say otherwise. The stats say that you all can't stop anybody. So why would I want you out on the field first? And by the time Patrick gets on the field, they're trailing either 3-0, 6-0, 7-0, or 8-0 because you can't stop anybody.
And like I said, I agree. And I mean, I obviously we don't make the calls, and it's a lot easier for us to armchair quarterback this. And I know that obviously we have nowhere near the experience or knowledge of Andy Reid, but I think you have to kind of think outside the box a little bit. We talked about this before the Tennessee Titans game. We had that quick chat pregame, and I mentioned Vrabel. He's a guy that does think outside the box. He will take a chance. He will go for it on fourth down. He might go for it on 4th and 10. He's going to do whatever he can to keep possession of the ball, to keep Patrick Mahomes off the field. And we've seen the Ravens do. We've seen a lot of teams do that to Kansas City because they want to keep Patrick Mahomes away from the ball, and they want to keep the ball and have possession and keep him off the field. So I think it's a good take. It's a good thought. Yeah, I mean, it's just it's been interesting this week to hear some of that, and I think there's been more pushback to it than those like yourself or myself that say, "Hey, why not? Let's put what is the feature of your organization out there. Let's put Patrick Mahomes out there and let them set the tempo." And I think that's what you're saying. You want them to set the tempo, and Patrick Mahomes is the guy to do it. And he's somebody, I think, if you put him out there first, it's going to put him on the spot, and I think you're going to get success from it.
And just one last thing before we actually dive into this ball game is one of the things that you touched on with Mike Vrabel.
I wasn't diving in.
Yeah, but one of the things that you talked about.
I've got nothing else, man.
Well, no, you're gonna have something on this, but like you mentioned, Mike Vrabel doing things again. The defense could possibly, again, if the offense starts off first and they're on top, now the other team might feel like they need to pass the ball. And you might be able to catch them back on the heels where you can rush and get after the passer, perhaps get them to, have a fumble or an interception. And now you got an extra possession. Now, one of the things that you mentioned, Vrabel, we know John Harbaugh would do it. They will try to do fake punts and go for it on 4th down where they can steal an extra possession. And that's something that again, that Kansas City doesn't do at all. Kansas City doesn't do any fake punts. They don't do anything to try to steal an extra possession. And that's one of the things that, again, concerns me.
And that's kind of what I was thinking when I replied to you. I was thinking, yeah, you're right. They Vrabel or other coaches, like you said, Harbaugh and others will make those outside the box type decisions. And like you said, steal a possession. So, if Kansas City would have took the ball and maybe set the tempo in Tennessee, I don't know. I think they actually did have the ball first. No. Tennessee did. You're right. And they went down and scored with Derrick Henry. And that's one thing. I think the Chiefs, on paper, they look like they contained. I think I think Henry only had like 86 yards rushing, but
Um,
they didn't need to because things
right,
changed.
because they were already up 27-0.
Right,
I
they
mean,
didn't need to run.
27-3. Yeah, so looking at this game, of course, for the New York Football Giants, of course, they do have Saquon Barkley, but he may or may not come back from being injured. But in the meantime, they do have Devontae Booker. And Daniel Jones, though, as a quarterback, he's the team leading rusher with 229 passing yards. Of course, he's thrown for a little bit over 1,700 yards, but he's only thrown for 5 touchdowns to go along with 4 interceptions. Now, he does have a decent wide receiving clan of Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, and of course, Evan Ingram at the tight end, but also Kenny Golladay. But a lot of them are hurt.
Right.
So what do you see that the Giants will need to do against this Chiefs defense that, again, can't stop the run, and they have problems with physical receivers, as we saw with A.J. Brown last week against the Tennessee Titans? What do the New York Football Giants need to do to try to pull this game out on Monday?
I mean, I'm trying to be, not look through Chiefs red colored glasses here. But when I look at the Giants team, and you just kind of really took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, with Saquon Barkley up in the air with his ankle injury, he didn't practice today. If he was healthy, I would say, okay, there's another running back that can really, they can control the ball. I don't know if they could stretch the field because, as you mentioned, their wide receiver core is pretty banged up. So I really don't know. I think that's why I feel like this is a game for Kansas City to really put things together. They're going to be going against what I would consider, I think a lot of people consider, a lesser opponent. Maybe not defensively. I mean, because Kansas City's defense is pretty much at the bottom of the barrel on just about every stat. But offensively, I don't think the Giants can keep pace. So I really can't think of anything other than just trying to find a way to control the ball. And they're going to, maybe, some field goals. I mean, they're going to have to, I don't know. Maybe they've got something. I don't know. Maybe the Chiefs defense might not even be able to stop the Giants banged up offense. I don't know, but I don't see that. I really think the Chiefs will outscore them. I think this is going to be, I mean, they averaged 29 points a game coming into the Tennessee game. I looked at some of the schedule. I think Dallas put 40+ points up on the Giants. I really think the Chiefs are going to have a game similar to what the Dallas game. I mean, that's what they should have, and they're playing at home.
Well,
I could be surprised. I thought they were going to do the same thing to Washington. They came out flat in the first half, and it had to take 21 answer points to win that game.
And one of the things you mentioned, you talked about the Chiefs going into the Tennessee game averaging 29 points. Well, that 3 dropped them down to 26.9, so 27 rounding up. But they give up 29 points. And again, the Giants' defense is actually ranked, better than the Chiefs' defense. So they could cause Kansas City some problems. Again, Kansas City, for its high-powered offense, only scored 3 points last week, which means outside of the Super Bowl, this is the only game that Patrick has been shut out, really, out of the end zone without any touchdowns. And so he was leading the NFL in touchdown passes up until last week's game. So
18,
again,
right? 18 coming into the game.
18. But nothing's guaranteed anymore now because you just don't know. And one of the things that concerns me about Kansas City is that because they've been having turnovers in 6 consecutive ball games, and not that, but they've had turnovers in every ball game this season. It becomes an issue where it becomes mental. So,
and even worse, 10 of those 17 have been inside their opponent's territory. So they're putting together long drives, but then they get down into their opponent's territory and they turn it over, because 17 sounds like a lot of turnovers, but when you know that 10 of them were inside their opponent's territory, that's even worse, because those are 10 bonehead mistakes, no ball control or bad decisions by Patrick Mahomes to throw an interception that should have been points on the board.
Or running backs or Tyreek Hill getting the ball punched out, fumbling the football, again, in dangerous territory that allows the other team to get it and have. There's so many things that you look at it. Leonard Williams, of course, defensively for the New York Football Giants. Again, they don't, they're pretty much even when it comes to giveaway and takeaways at 9 apiece. Kansas City is a -10. They've given the ball away 17 times. They've only taken it away 7 times. When one of the things that I've been interested in is how to utilize the run game. Now they are 20-3 when the team rushes more than 20 times in a ball game. The problem is they don't rush that often anymore because they feel like their passing game is their run game. Darren Williams is aiming for a third game in a row with 50-plus scrimmages. He has 3 rushing touchdowns in 2 career games against the NFC East. How do you think, or do you feel like the Chiefs will utilize their running game more, or do you think that like the running game is pretty much anemic to Andy Reid's DNA, where he's just going to pass the ball regardless of what the defense gives him, even though the defense will fall back, in a cover 2, taking away the deep ball for Kansas City, wanting the Chiefs to run. But Andy Reid, do you think he's going to try to run the football? Because they did have success now. Let's not forget against the Chargers, I think they rushed for 168 yards, and against the Philadelphia Eagles, they rushed for 200 yards. And that was the best game to me of the season, even though it did go kind of back and forth. They won 38-20, I believe it was, or something to that effect. But they rushed for 200 yards, and Patrick threw for 5 touchdowns. I mean, to me, that was the most complete game, even though I think he did have a turnover in that game as well.
Yeah, it seems like he's had a turnover in the last several games. But when Edwards-Helaire was before his knee injury, they were as a team they're averaging 118 yards rushing per game.
Yeah.
But when Edwards-Helaire was in there, they were almost averaging 5 yards a carry. Darrell Williams is averaging, I think, about 3.5 a carry. But they really haven't given. I think that's deceiving because they really haven't.
Correct.
He hadn't had the opportunity because they've been down in games, and he hadn't really had an opportunity. But when I see him in there, I think he has much more. It just seems to me he has much more just leverage, and he's still he's still agile and still has moves and can get yards in chunks on the ground. So that was kind of what I was going to say was run the ball. They've got an offensive line that can run block as well. I mean, when you look at the left tackle, first of all, Orlando Brown coming from the Ravens, I mean, that is a running offense. But they rebuilt this offensive line. It can pass protect. It can run. I think Darrell Williams is a guy that they really need to – this would be a game that they really need to try to establish a run. And this is kind of the note I made, thinking if the Chiefs can run the ball in this game and not kind of do that typical Kansas City high-flying Patrick Mahomes offense, then, when they go into the Packers game, that's going to be one game that the Packers are not going to really see the full magic of Patrick Mahomes. I think they really need to let the Packers know we can run the ball with our, with Darrell Williams and our team. And then Patrick Mahomes is mobile too, but you really don't want to see him in the pocket or out of the pocket, even though we know historically, and I know I actually heard you say that that's what he does and that's how he's got here. But I think he really does need to get back to the basics. So, but he can run the ball and he can get first downs. And when he's got wide open field, I think he should do that because he's got the feet. But I think you got to give Darrell Williams the carries in this game and let the league, let the Chiefs' upcoming opponents know they can run the ball, because right now defenses are just keeping them contained where everything is underneath and they're not stretching the field. And yeah, they got Travis Kelce and he's still 3rd or 4th or 5th in yardage or receptions, but he's going to get beat up. And I just don't think, Tyreek Hill has not been able to get over the top. So I think you got to set up that run. You got to set up that pass with the run. And I think Darrell Williams is the guy they really need to give the ball to see what he can do. Especially you got to know what you're going to have going down the stretch and getting into the cold weather. And Monday night looks like it has a chance of rain. Not really cold, but as we move into December, we're going to have some cold, rainy, mushy fields, and you got to have a running game.
We're joined on the Bleav with Kansas City, or Bleav in Kansas City with Darren Smith. We're joined by SiriusXM's Christian Vedder. Join us on the podcast this week, looking at the Kansas City Chiefs and the New York Football Giants. Monday night, of course, you can watch that game on ESPN and also listen to it on ESPN Radio. Christian, looking at the wide receivers for Kansas City, Travis Kelce has been, he's been kind of battered and bruised these last few weeks with some of these teams that have been trying to beat him up at the line of scrimmage. But he and Tyreek Hill had an off game last week. He's been rather quiet recently. He's of course suffering from a little quad contusion, so he's been kind of down and out. But recently, Byron Pringle has been paying off, showing big dividends for the Kansas City wide receiving core. Want to get your quick thoughts on this on the Chiefs offense against the New York Football Giants defense in Monday night's game.
Well, I think Tyreek Hill's still up there in total yardage. I think he's still like third or fourth. He's still up there, maybe fifth. I can't remember. I saw the stat earlier today. But Byron Pringle, he's a bigger receiver. And you remember, I mean, we had Sammy Watkins, but Sammy Watkins, when he was in there, it was a completely different dynamic on that Kansas City offense.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, even when they had Sammy, they didn't have Sammy. You know what I mean?
True.
I mean, they didn't have him. And when he was hurt, when he was out of the game, the dynamic of the Chiefs offense changed and defenses seem to do something because even though they have Mecole Hardman and now they've got, they've had Byron Pringle and Josh Gordon, we've only seen, I think, maybe one target or one catch possibly. I can't remember. I think one catch in the Washington game, but Byron Pringle is a bigger body. I don't have he looks bigger to me. I don't know his exact, you may know his exact height and stuff, but he looks like a bigger body. He doesn't have the speed as a Sammy Watkins, but he's a guy that can catch the ball. And I think that they do need to find a way to get him more incorporated into the offense. But I still think Mecole Hardman is a guy with speed that you got to get the ball to as well. The Chiefs just haven't stretched the field. They really look like the last couple of weeks, they look like the Alex Smith-led Chiefs to me. I mean, a lot of dinking and dunking and long drives only to end in turnovers. As I mentioned, 10 of those of 17 ending in a turnover, near the goal line. Or inside their opponent's territory. So they got to stretch the field. They got to run the ball. They got to get back to that, but they got to do it in a way that's not erratic, not chaos, not having to create on the run. They should be able to come up and draw up a game plan that includes Patrick Mahomes staying in the pocket, handing the ball off, finding those opportunities to stretch the field. That's what I mean. I know it sounds easier said than done, but I just think they're kind of getting outside themselves. That's why I was calling it an identity crisis. They forgot who they are.
I do want to ask you before we get out of here, of course, the defense. Chris Jones is back from his wrist injury. Charvarius Ward is back. Frank Clark has been back. I know. We're expecting to talk to Frank Clark before the Giants game, but Tyrann Mathieu, Nick Bolton. Of the last couple of games, we've seen Juan Thornhill thrive being in the starting lineup. How does this defense reemerge and go from where they are, low down on the low man's totem pole defensively to try to get back to at least be an average defense that can help this team get back to the Super Bowl?
I think it starts up front. You got to get pressure on the quarterback. They have struggled. Let me see. I wrote down that. Let's see here. They have. They're not getting to the quarterback, and they're not getting the pressures. Yeah. So it's going to start with if Chris Jones is going to be healthy and in this game, Chris Jones, Frank Clark, they got to put pressure on the quarterback, and that's when the secondary, led by Tyrann Mathieu, that's when this defense does much better. That's when they're much more. This defense really only needs to be middle of the road. They only need to be 15th to 20th ranked defense, and have the ability to pressure the quarterback, cause some turnovers. That's all they really need to do. They don't need to be the number 1 D. They don't need to be a top 5 D. But I think it starts with Chris Jones and Frank Clark, and you got Hitchens out, so you're gonna have Ben Neiman in there, and I'm trying to think who else. But I mean, that's not the problem. You got to get pressure on the quarterback. So I don't even get me started on the linebacking core, because they really need to just completely start over. So when I see people putting the Chiefs down, and they were putting Daniel Sorensen down, and why, and things like that, blame Brett Veach, because they need to get better players on defense. And I know that Spags is getting a lot of grief as well, but I just don't think they got the personnel when it comes to linebacking quarter. But up front, if Frank Clark and Chris Jones play to their ability, they should be able to get after the quarterback. And then I think that opens up things in the secondary for Tyrann Mathieu to make a play. He's got 2 interceptions, but he's a guy who can also sneak up and also get the quarterback as well.
Well, Christian, before we get out of here, I want to know your prediction. Who you think is going to win the game on Monday?
I think the Chiefs are going to have.
They're a 10-point favorite now. So
I was going to say blowout. Just because when I hear Patrick Mahomes say, "Hey, look, it's on me. I got to get back to the basics or fundamentals and not make stupid mistakes." I don't know if he said, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if he said basics or fundamentals, but I think he definitely said today that it was on him. It was on him. But Patrick Mahomes' basics are a little leveled up than most basics of other quarterbacks in the league. So his basic is pretty good. So if they just do what they're capable of doing and stay within their capabilities, I think the Chiefs should win this game 42-10. That's my prediction. 42-10. I think the
Whoa.
Chiefs at home at Arrowhead, after, let's face it, a stinker in Washington that took 21 unanswered points, and then the 27-3 massacre at Tennessee. I think the Chiefs need to put up a 42-10 game. That's the kind of game they need. Let me look real quick. If we got a second, I want to look at the Giants' schedule because they played the Rams. The Rams beat them 38-11. The Cowboys beat them 44-20. That's the kind of game I think the Chiefs need to have at Arrowhead on Monday night. 42-10 Chiefs. That's my prediction.
All right. Well, that would obviously cover the point spread and everything else. I'm with you. I think, the problem, the only pushback I give you is that the defense hasn't shown. Yeah, they've shown that they've been able to do well keeping the team scoreless the second half of the last two ball games. But I got to see them put 4 quarters together. Till they can put 4 quarters together and show me that they can keep a team out the end zone and keep them from running up and down the field, I got this being much closer. I do have Kansas City winning. However, I don't have them covering the 10 points. 10
yeah,
points.
I said that because I know that sounds – because I looked at I looked at some of these other games, and I know that they're not the Cowboys, they're not the Rams. But when I look at that Giants offense, really nothing jumps out at me. Their wide receivers are, bigger and they might feast on the Chiefs secondary. I don't know. But I just feel like the Chiefs, that big game has been looming and they just haven't been able to get it. And I think they're going to put it all together. And it might end up being, a 35-24, or 35-28. It could be. But I just think the Chiefs are due for a big blowout win, and what better place to do it at home at Arrowhead. 42-10. Don't be surprised.
All right. That's SiriusXM's Christian Vedder. Christian will be doing this again.
And if it's not true, delete this.
Big facts. Thank you so much for joining us on the Bleav in Kansas City podcast with your guy, Darren Smith. We'll be back again following the Chiefs game Monday night. Yeah.
You gotta defer.
You gotta defer.
Look at the numbers.
Christian, I'll see you Monday at Arrowhead, and of course, we'll do some stuff with your podcast before the game. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in, downloading. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. And we'll see you again next week. Until then, go Chiefs.
Thanks, Darren.